Howdy, mates. How are we doing? Good morning. It is Sunday, February 19th, 2023. I'm actually visiting a site that I have never been to before. This is known as the Gamble Mansion, which is based up in Bradenton, Florida. Actually getting close to Palmetto, Florida. So we're basically just off of the Manatee River Valley, basically. That's the closest river. So the reason I got to even find out about this place was a friend of mine, Gerald. He actually made a post about this area and provided a little bit of historical context behind it. Now, given that it is Black History Month, which is the case for February, I figured that this would be a relevant site to visit, because I will tell you something. You can admire the fact that at least the history and the architecture of the mansion is preserved, but the history that is behind this place is a whole different feeling. It's a lot more gross, dreary, and just ugly. So the mansion was initially built just after the Seminole Wars were reaching its end. So you figure this is in the mid 1800s, going into the 1850s. An individual by the name of Robert Gamble, he was a major, and I believe he was also, basically, Robert Gamble was one of those people who made sure that he was essentially exterminating any native peoples, such as the Seminole. And he basically cleared out the land here. He took advantage of a particular act that was enacted during the time. I'll put that in the description. But basically, he was granted free land as long as he had the ability to clear it from both natives and any other vegetation that was here. And essentially, he established this plantation. And by the way, it's the only remaining plantation in South Florida, in case if you guys did not know that. But this antebellum mansion was mostly built by slaves. And it was said that throughout the grounds, there are up to 190 different slaves that resided here. And, of course, the slaves had their own quarters, with which there isn't any seen here. Now, me mentioning the term antebellum, what exactly does that mean? Well, it's actually a Latin term that means before the war. So, essentially, this is a plantation, gives a glimpse of the Southern way of life before the Civil War happened. And the biggest operation that Robert Gamble participated in was the sugar industry. Sugarcane. That was the most sought after crop down here at the time. And you figure too, during this time, Florida was a lot more undeveloped. The only major cities at the time were St. Augustine and Key West. That was it. So, we were pretty much in wilderness at the time. But that's essentially what antebellum means. It's an example of some Greek architecture based on the Ionic columns. It was a two-story. It's a two-story home or mansion. And what lies in front of us here is actually something known as a cistern. And it's actually a rather large one, too, at that. So essentially this cistern collected water, basically from rain. Because, of course, during the wet season, Florida is known to be very rainy. But it had the ability to collect water, and it would be stored in here. And there's actually a limestone slab in that cistern that allows the water to be filtered quite easily. To be honest, for the engineering behind this cistern, it's actually quite remarkable. However, though, the materials used to build the cistern also has a dark history. So some of the shell material that you're seeing, which is also known as tabby, much of this tabby came from Seminole mounds. And so you figure these mounds were basically desecrated and were used to help build the cistern and even some of the foundation of this mansion. And one last thing too that I wanted to mention, so this is just as the Civil War was wrapping up. An individual by the name of Judah P. Benjamin, who was actually part of the Confederacy, he actually stayed here for a time. He only stayed here for about a month. And this is in 1865. So he actually had a very close relationship with Jefferson Davis, who was, of course, the president of the Confederacy. So, by the way, yes, Florida was indeed part of the Confederacy. Anyway, Judah fled here to basically plan out for his escape, because essentially since the Confederacy was dissolving, he wanted to find a way out without getting arrested. And he eventually fled over to England. So, like I said, this place really has a bit of a dreary history to it. Something to not exactly be proud of. But anyway, as it got into the early 1900s, this mansion was basically falling apart, and an organization called the Daughters of the Confederacy, they bought out this mansion so that it could be restored, and to help essentially preserve a piece of history, even given how dark it is. But yeah, as I said before, this is one of the only remaining plantations in Florida. And that's it. So, alright, you guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys learned something of value. I'll actually share an article with you guys that actually helped me get a little more background information if you want to learn more. And it also helped me, provide a bit of a base for interpretation. So, alright, take care. Peace out.